by one of the cowherd boys. It's interesting that the divine couple send messages back and forth to each other in different ways. One way is that Krishna sends a Priya Narmasaka, with a message to Radharani. Priya Narmasaka means one of Krishna's intimate cowherd boyfriends. Most of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends have little to do or nothing with the young girls of Vrindavan. No girls. I remember when I was little, sometimes me and my friends, we would build a tree house. You know, you go into a tree and you build a structure, you know, boys are, a tree house, and we put a sign outside, boys only, no girls allowed. So most of the cowherd boys are like that. But there's a special class of cowherd boys who facilitate Radha and Krishna's meeting. Cowherd boys like Subal and Ujvala, these are Priya Namasakas. Then there's the Gopi messengers who deliver and bring back messages between Radha and Krishna. There's lots of them, but the most prominent ones are Vrindadevi, Vrindarika, Mela, and Murali. These are the most important. And actually of them, Vrindadevi is actually the leader amongst the Gopi messengers. Now these Gopi messengers, they're described as very fair complexioned, and they're known for their colorful garments. They're all filled with great love for Radha and Krishna, and they know the geography of Vrindavan very well. In English we say they know every nook and cranny. Then, let's see, other messengers. Oh yeah, there's the famous parrots of Vrindavan. They fly with the message over the treetops. Like Sukha and Sari, two parrots who, they're famous for carrying the messages back. And then there's Vichaksana. Vichaksana is a Krishna's pet parrot. He's described as he's a very experienced parrot in the service of his master. And he once famously said, of the many services rendered to the Prince of Braj, delivering messages is the most exciting. He really likes his service. Of the many services rendered to the Prince of Braja, Krishna, delivering messages is really the most exciting. I also discovered that Radha and Krishna sometimes deliver messages between themselves by meditation. And of course, last but not least, we know that Krishna sends messages throughout Vrindavan with his famous Venu, or his flute. So anyway, on this particular winter day, when Krishna sent a message to Radharani to meet him in the secluded Kamaravan, it's described the air was very chilly that day. We have personal experience of this, how cold the winters can be here in Vrindavan. Prabhupada, very chilly that day. We have personal experience of this, how cold the winters can be here in Vrindavan. Prabhupada commented one time he could tolerate the heat here in Vrindavan, but that the cold was something very difficult to tolerate. So because of that winter chill, naturally at that time of year, Krishna and the cowherd boys, they would carry thick shawls or blankets with them. And often the boys would cover some of the calves or the cows with very thick decorative blankets as well. So Krishna made some excuse. He went to meet Radharani in Kamaravan. Remember the excuse now. He told his friends, I want to go see the beauty of Kamaravan. So the boy said, okay, but come back quick. So because of that chill, Krishna took his shawl or his blanket with him and made his way to Kamaravan. And when he arrived, he folded the blanket and put it on a large rock, and he sat there while, it says, surveying the beautiful landscape around him. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited for Srimati Radharani, but she wasn't coming. Once again, she was late. One thing about Krishna is that he feels very unhappy being alone. Rupa Goswami describes this, that Krishna feels very unhappy being alone. In fact, one time Prabhupada said, you'll never see a bona fide picture of Krishna alone. He's always with some devotee. This is the absolute truth. The Lord his devotee, and the process of devotional service. Krishna can't tolerate being alone. Rupa Goswami describes why. He says, because without his friends or his companions, he cannot taste or experience rasa. He's Rasamrita Murti, he's the deity, or he's the personification of love. Rasa means the mellows of loving exchanges. On a very mundane saying, they say, love is a two-way street. I love you, and then you love me, spontaneously. Krishna's essential nature is to enjoy with his devotees. This is actually confirmed in the Taittiriya Upanishad 261, in which we hear of the constitution of Krishna's body. The Upanishad says, Krishna's head is pleasure, his right side is joy, his left side is delight, and his identity is bliss. We also have practical experience that enjoyment is really when we're with our friends or our associates or our family. Once in a while we want to be alone, but that's really an exception to the rule. Better is the more the merrier, we say in English. The more the merrier. And that is absolutely true on the absolute platform. So that same Taittiriya Upanishad confirms that Krishna doesn't like solitude. The Upanishad says, Kamayata bahusham prajayeya, that the Supreme Lord desired, let me become many, let me father many living entities. This is in the language of the Upanishads. Let me become many, let me father many living entities. And for Krishna's supreme pleasure, he manifested his Ladini Shakti, his pleasure potency, as Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani. So this Sri Radha, she was late that day, but not of her own accord, but because of the watchful eye of her mother-in-law, Jatila. As a pastime, nothing more than a pastime, Radharani's married to Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu's mother is Jatila. So Jatila is aware of Radha and Krishna's spontaneous, intimate love for each other, and she's always on the lookout to make sure they don't meet secretly. This parakiya bhav, this mood of unwedded love, is the predominant mood in Vrindavan. Sambhog, meeting, and vipralambha, separation, they work to facilitate increasing the excitement of pure love between Radha and Krishna. So on that particular day, Jatila was keeping a very close eye on Sri Radha, very suspicious for whatever reason that day. She wasn't even letting Radharani go for her daily worship of the sun god at Suryakund, which was a place Radha and Krishna do meet. So the acharyas write that with every passing moment, Krishna's kama, loving desire, to be with Radha intensified. And the special nature of Kamaravan is that mood, Krishna's increasing intense desire to be with Radha, that mood can still be felt in Kamaravan even today. So thus that whole area is called Kamara or Kamaravan. The acharyas write that as such, Krishna was repeatedly rising from his seat, walking down a path, returning down, sitting up again, walking, We've experienced this in a mundane way, how something's very intense. And his eagerness to meet Radha built up minute by minute until he was on the verge of fainting. So to prevent himself from actually losing consciousness and to let Radharani know the seriousness of his condition, Krishna spoke to his flute. Remember, everything in Vrindavan, animate and inanimate, is a person's personified. And everyone and everything is working together very cooperatively to please the divine couple, Radha and Krishna. When Radha and Krishna are satisfied, naturally everyone else is fully satisfied. This is the message of Krishna consciousness to this world, where there's so much conflict and so forth. So Krishna spoke to his flute. He said, "My dear friend, you are my final resort. You please communicate to Sri Radha that I stand on the edge of a precipice from which only her touch can pull me back. A precipice is the edge of a cliff, so please communicate to her that I'm on the edge of the cliff and only her touch can pull me back. So the flute went into a state of samadhi, and without making a sound, without playing a note, communicated Krishna's message to Sri Radha.
Yeah.
In samadhi, the flute communicated a message, very deep and very nectarian. So fortunately, it's described Sri Radha received the flute's message, and she was already close enough to save Krishna before he fell unconscious to the ground. And it's interesting exactly how she did that. It's described that as soon as she got close enough to see Krishna, she stepped on a dry branch which made a loud cracking noise. Krishna heard the noise, and raising his head, he saw Radharani's golden effulgence, which prevented him from falling unconscious. And leaving the spot where he was sitting on his blanket, he rushed forward to embrace her. And then, as planned, they spent many hours together, walking, talking, and joking together in the Kamaravan forest. And towards the end of the afternoon, Srimati Radharani left to go back to Yavat. And then Krishna continued walking around in a daze of love. And then the thought came to his mind, where's my blanket? Where's my blanket? And a little later, as evening approached, in the fog of love, he again remembered his blanket. And he was thinking, did I bring it to Kamaravan? Or did I leave it with the Gopas, my cowherd boyfriends? I can't remember. It's written, still bewildered by the effects of Radha's company, and even more so by her departure, he could not recall. So he's walking around looking for his blanket. He sees a group of young gopis nearby. They were tidying up the sacred forest. Tidying up the sacred forest. So Krishna addressed the gopis. My dear friends, have you seen my winter blanket somewhere in the forest? So the girls were elated. This was a rare, very rare opportunity for them to have some exchange with Krishna. So one gopi stepped forward. She said, a strong gust of wind blew it into the Jamuna. I saw it float away. Krishna was startled. Then another gopi said, I don't think that was Krishna's blanket. On our way here, I saw some cows near the path chewing on something. That must have been Krishna's blanket. Now Krishna doesn't know what to think. They were playing with him. Then a third girl teased, Krishna, don't worry. For the small price of a flute song and a dance, we will give you a new blanket, much better than the old one. But Krishna was in no mood for joking, and he quickly left to continue looking for his blanket. After some time, suddenly, in the forest, he came upon Durvasa Muni, great sage, Durvasa Muni, wandering in Vrindavan forest. Described he was standing there with long, matted locks, wearing only a loincloth, and happily holding Krishna's blanket. Now, as we can imagine, many sages, they roam the forests of Bharatvarsha, of greater India. And, many of them look the same, as described, the loincloth, the matted hairs. But it's described that Durvasa Muni is easily recognized. The Mahabharata, the greater history of India, Adi Parva 120 verses 4 and 5, describe Durvasa Muni as follows. Ugram paryachat tatra brahmananam samisti vatram nikunda nishtayam dharme yamtam durvasavam vidu. There was a Brahmana who executed extreme austerities and who always kept his thoughts and decisions about dharma extremely secret. That sage was known as Durvasa, who always keeps his thoughts and decisions about dharma extremely secret. This is interesting. So that sage is known as Durvasa Muni. And standing before Krishna, that was the very person that was holding Krishna's blanket as if he just discovered a great treasure. But of course he had, but he didn't know. So Durvasa Muni said to Krishna, "O son of Nanda, is this your blanket?" To which Krishna replied, "O Muni, it was mine until it came to you." This is really a renunciation, isn't it? "O Muni, it was mine until it came to you." How many of us could say when we lost something that was very dear to us and someone else found it, and we could say, "It was mine until it came to you"? There's a saying in English, I don't think Mavan will catch it because it's a little subtle, but finders keepers, losers weepers. Finders keepers, losers weepers. "O Muni, it was mine until it came to you." So then Krishna said, "My duty is to distribute wealth to the Brahmins daily, but I can never accept a gift from a Brahmana other than the gift of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, what you hold belongs to you." So beautiful. "O Durvasa, you know the principles of Dharma, the knowledge that paves the way to liberation for conditioned souls. Please do with the blanket as you wish. My respectful obeisances unto you, all glories to you." And pleased with Krishna's humility and kindness, Durvasa Muni accepted the Lord's blanket, Kamara, as Mahaprasad. So that's Kamaravan, where the pastime took place, the blanket pastime. The enlightened sage knew that by wearing the blanket, he would be freed from the cycle of birth and death. This is called Tadiya. The paraphernalia of the Lord is totally transcendental. Very often the remnants of the deity, the deity's clothes, or some article the deity has used, is given away in charity to some distinguished person visiting the temple or whatever, and it's taken very as a special gift. I mentioned on a number of occasions that in London in 1971, Srila Prabhupada to encourage me and another devotee going to France, Americans with not speaking one word of French, to help inaugurate the movement there. In London, Prabhupada reached into his dresser drawer and he pulled out one of his dhotis and he gave it to me, personally handed it to me, and he said, "A gift from a Vaishnava is a very special thing." When I remember that, my heart beats faster. Those simple moments, but purely transcendental, they're milestones in our lives. So Uddhava teaches us about the importance of honoring Krishna's remnants. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 6th chapter, verse 46, Uddhava says, "Simply by decorating ourselves with the garlands, oils, clothes, and ornaments you have enjoyed, O Krishna, and by eating the remnants of your meals, we, your servants, will indeed conquer your illusory energy." So in this way, Kamaravan is named for the passionate mood, the kama, in which Krishna waited there for Vrindavan Eshwari, Srimati Radharani, as well as for the blanket, Kamara, he once lost and then gave in charity to the great sage Durvasa Muni. So put this Kamaravan on your list of transcendental places to visit here in this beautiful sacred abode of Sri Vrindavan. Actually, one of Durvasa Muni's ashrams is not far from Kamaravan. That ashram is called Durvasa Kunda, stone's throw from Kamaravan. Actually, Durvasa Muni is a really interesting person. We can talk a little bit about him because he spent a lot of time in Vrindavan, it appears. Yeah. And many of his pastimes are narrated in Vedic scriptures. The first one that comes to mind is, of course, when Durvasa Muni offended the great devotee Maharaj Ambarish. As a result of that offense, Lord Vishnu chastised Durvasa Muni. He got chastised. Yeah. Right? The Lord sent his Sudarshan Chakra to punish Durvasa. And Durvasa Muni is mystic yogi. He can fly to the sky. So the Bhagavatam describes that to avoid that chakra, Durvasa flew throughout the entire material creation looking for shelter. And in desperation he approached the demigods, but the Devatas said, we can't do anything against a weapon of Lord Vishnu. So then Durvasa went to Vaikuntha and he asked Lord Vishnu, Krishna, for help. It's interesting that although he made a mistake, we can appreciate how elevated he is by the simple fact that he was allowed to enter Vaikuntha. But Krishna said to Durvasa, my dear sadhu, even I can't help you because you've offended my devotee, and I'm under the control of my devotees. I'm under the control of my devotees. So you have to go to my devotee to ask for forgiveness, and then the chakra will stop following you. How much is Krishna under the control of his devotees? Yeah, there's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam, actually. Aham bhakta paradhino yasvatanta ivad dvija sarubhir grashta hridaya bhaktar bhakta jana priya. I'm completely under the control of my devotees. Indeed, I'm not at all independent. Because my devotees are completely devoid of material desires, I sit only within the core of their hearts. What to speak of my devotee? Even those who are devotees of my devotee are very dear to me. So Durvasa very quickly went to where Maharaj Ambarish was, and grabbing his feet, he asked to be forgiven. And Maharaj Ambarish, being the true Vaishnava that he is, forgave him. So that's the first pastime of Durvasa Muni that comes to my mind, because it's very instructive. Let's see. Now, Durvasa, like a number of sages we've discussed during the last few months, we know he's very easily pleased and easily displeased. Like Lord Shiva, Ashutosh, he's very pleased and he's easily displeased. Durvasa can get really angry, so in generally people are somewhat afraid of him. Even sages are afraid of him, because he's famous for cursing people. Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions how there were approximately 20 principal demons that Kamsa sent to Vrindavan to kill Krishna, and he writes about half of them became demons because Durvasa Muni cursed them. Of course, like any genuine sadhu, Durvasa has his soft side too. There's a very nice pastime in that regard. On their way to sell milk products at the market. So when Durvasa Muni saw them, he said, young ladies, please can you help me get something to eat and something to drink? I'm very thirsty and I'm very hungry. So when the girls saw it was Durvasa, Lalita said to Radha, let's get out of here quickly, this sadhu gets really angry. So they quickly talked with each other. They said to Durvasa, no problem, just give us 1 hour, with the idea he would reject the offer, being impatient and wanting to leave. It's too long, 1 hour. Problem, just give us 1 hour, with the idea he would reject the offer, being impatient and wanting to leave. It's too long, 1 hour. But Durvasa said, no, now, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, now. So as a last resort, the gopis looked at Sri Radha and they said, Radhika, you're Vrindavaneshwari, you're the controller of Vrindavan. Surely you can come up with a solution. It's a famous pastime. So Radharani smiled, and taking some Jamuna jal, some Jamuna water they were carrying, she reached down and picked up some brajreno, she picked up some dust from Vrindavan, and mixing the water with that dust, she made a number of small, mud biscuits, for want of a better word, some mud biscuits. Mud biscuits to offer to the sadhu? Yes. Shastra says that 1 grain of dust of Vrindavan is more valuable than all the opulence of Vaikuntha. So Sri Radha said to Durvasa, here, try one. And we can imagine Durvasa just looking at the biscuit and saying, are you serious? So somehow Sri Radha or Yogamaya convinced him, and he took a small bite. And he suddenly found himself devouring the whole biscuit. Then he said, can I have another one? And in this way he ate many of those biscuits and was shantushti. He was completely satisfied. So being the sage, being the Brahmana, the elderly Brahmana as he was, he offered to give a blessing to Sri Radha. It's ironic because Radharani is Jayashri. She's the original goddess of fortune. She's the source of all auspiciousness. So how can you give a blessing to the person who's the source of everything auspicious? Well, by her mercy. Sages are meant to give blessings, as long as they remember who is the actual source of their blessing, which is Sri Krishna, Radharani. So Durvasa gave a very famous blessing to Srimati Radharani. Every Gaudiya Vaishnava knows that blessing in their heart of hearts. He said, young girl, I bless you that whatever you cook will taste like nectar, and whoever eats what you cook will never become sick. So, Radharani is the best cook. And I've heard she never cooks the same preparation twice for her beloved Krishna. Later, actually, Mother Yashoda took this blessing into consideration, being concerned for her Lala, for little Krishna, and she approached Radharani's mother, Kirtida Sundari, and requested that Sri Radha could cook breakfast every day for her son. And that continued for many years, actually. Actually, there's a beautiful shastra called Krishna Nika Komodi by Kavi Karnapura. Krishna Nika Komodi. That would be a nice name for some young lady. Krishna Nika Komodi. The cookbook. Technically, there's several chapters in that shastra describing exactly what preparations Radharani cooks and how these preparations are served. This is part of our Vaishnava etiquette, which is so important to the cultural presentation of Krishna consciousness. How prasadam is prepared, how it's cooked, how it's served, and how it's eaten. We're always stressing the cultural aspect of our tradition, that our devotees will retain it for hundreds and thousands of years, because it's so unique, it's spiritual. So in Krishna Nika Komodi Kavi Karnapura, there's a chapter entitled Entering the Dining Hall. And there he writes, Krishna, wearing splendid yellow cloth, offers respects to Mother Yasoda, and under her direction allows some young girls to wash his feet as he enters into the prasadam hall or arena. Then he sits down and becomes completely astonished to see all the delectable preparations that are there on the table. Then Krishna, his Brahmin friend, Madhumangal, Balaram, and all the cowherd boys, they accept water in their hands, argya, as part of it's called the dining ritual. And then the author describes that the water in Krishna's hand turns red from the radiance of his lotus palm. Every detail is relishable. Sweet rice pudding with clarified butter. Durvasa happily ate the sweet rice, then gave the girls his remnants and blessed them before giving them permission to return to their homes. So Srila Prabodhana Saraswati says the word abhuktva in this verse indicates that Durvasa ate everything the gopis offered him, although the duty of the saint or the sadhu is to leave some remnants for his followers. Prabodhana Saraswati says that the implication is that he, having eaten everything, he was completely satisfied with the gopis. So he thought, these girls are Krishna's beloveds. It is through good fortune that today I've been able to eat foodstuffs cooked by their hands, which they have brought to me personally. And it's described that while Durvasa was well aware that Krishna was the Supreme Lord, and that the gopis were his dearmost servants, the gopis themselves, by dint of the Yogamaya, were not conscious of these truths. But he felt very honored by their presence. So he gave them permission to leave, but then it's described out of great respect for them, after giving them that permission, he remained silent. He was humbled by their presence. Just like one would be, one is humbled in the audience of one's spiritual master or the deity. So the gopis themselves, they were satisfied that by having even a short darshan with Durvasa Muni, they had fulfilled Krishna's instructions, and thereby they would their prayer would be fulfilled. Krishna would fulfill their prayer, which was, Krishna, we want to serve you, we want to be with you forever and forevermore. They felt they achieved that. But now they were faced with the dilemma of crossing back over the flooded and raging Yamuna River. They'd received the mantra for crossing over, but they had no mantra for crossing back. So they respectfully asked Durvasa, Katam Yashyamo Tirtha Suryam. Sir, how can we cross the Yamuna to get back? And Durvasa's cryptic reply in the following verse is similar to Krishna's instruction. But both answers are pregnant with deep spiritual truth. So Durvasa replied, he gave them a mantra, Sohavak Amuni, Durvasinam Mam Smritva Margam Vo Das Yatiti. The sage said to the gopis, think of me as having eaten nothing but durva grass, and the river will make a path for you. You can think like that, and you can pronounce that to the river Jamuna. That the sage he's just eaten nothing but durva grass. Please let us cross. The word Durvasena means either one who has eaten durva grass, or one for whom foodstuffs have remained at a distance. Sure. Ashanam yashtatam. These foodstuffs have remained at a distance. Or one who has fasted. Basically what he's saying to the gopis, if you think of me as one who has fasted, the river will part and give you passage. So once again the gopis find themselves looking at each other like in disbelief. They say, but you didn't eat durva grass. What to speak of fasting? You ate an entire feast our hands had offered to our beloved Krishna. So they were about to depart, but they paused for a moment. They were thinking like, can we ask him a few questions respectfully about these two special mantras that we received today? How could Durvasa be said to have fasted after eating what they offered him, and how could Krishna truthfully say he was a brahmachari? So they decided they would ask him. Every pastime has a deep philosophical, profound truth behind it. But what they did, the Gopaltapani Upanishad says, they pushed forward one special gopi to inquire from Durvasa. Now the Gopaltapani Upanishad mentions this specifically in the 11th verse of the chapter describing this pastime. And it's interesting. The Sanskrit is Tasam madhyehi shreshta Gandharvi yuvacha tam havai tabir evam vicharya. The best amongst the gopis, Gandharvi, spoke to the sage after considering several questions with the other gopis. Now many acharyas consider this verse very important in this Upanishad because the verse mentions that best amongst the gopis, Gandharvi. That's underlined in verse 13. It says that all the gopis present accepted the leadership of that gopi named Gandharvi. And all of our acharyas commenting on this pastime agree that Gandharvi is Gandharvika. It's one of the many names of Srimati Radharani. Gandharvi or Gandharvika, the same import, the same meaning. The many names of Radharani. So our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas, they consider these verses found in the Gopaltapani Upanishad to be Shruti Pramana, scriptural evidence from the Upanishads to confirm the exalted position of Srimati Radharani over all the other gopis. The idea that Radha is the best of gopis is clearly stated in the Padma Purana and other Smriti texts, like in particular the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10:30-28, famous verse to establish Radharani. Anya Radito Nunam Bhagavan Harir Ishvara Yano Vihaya Govinda Prito Yam Ananyad Raha. the gopis are saying, certainly this particular gopi has perfectly worshipped the all-powerful personality of Godhead, Govinda, since he was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. This is a very important verse. This establishes Sri Radha, that special gopi. Srila Vishnav Chakravarti explains that the word aradhita in this verse refers to Radharani, and he comments, he says in his commentaries, the sage Shukadev Goswami has tried with all endeavor to keep her name hidden, but now it automatically shines forth from the moon of his mouth. That he has spoken her name is indeed her mercy, and thus the word aradhita is like the rumbling of a kettle drum, sounded to announce her good fortune and our good fortune that we're introduced to this divine personality, Jayashri, the original goddess of fortune. So in the Upanishads we hear of Srimati Radharani, the best amongst the gopis. And in his Ujjvala Nilamani, Rupa Goswami refers to Radha by the same names. He calls her Gandharva or Gandharvi and Gandharvika. And in his Ujjvala Nilamani, 4th chapter, 4th verse, he actually cites this verse from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad as evidence that the Upanishads glorify Radha as the main gopi. And our Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was fond of these particular names of Sri Radha. In fact, he named the deities in Mayapur at the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the Yoga Pith, he named those deities which are very dear to him, Sri Sri Gandharvika Giridhari. So a little transcendental, how would you say, little transcendental diversion here, just to establish the glories of Srimati Radharani. Who was the gopi that the gopis pushed forward to ask the questions to Durvasa Muni? So Gandharvi or Gandharvika Sri Radhe, she came forward and said, Katam Krishna Brahmachari Katam Durvasino Muni. She said, how can Krishna be called a brahmachari, and how can you be said to be a fasting sage? So the sages love to answer questions. Rudra likes to use his hands to build a temple. Vaishya likes to milk the cows. Kshatriya likes to protect Dharma, fighting to protect Dharma. And a Brahmin likes to speak the truth. Durvasa Muni, he sat up and explained. He said, as for myself, a person may engage his senses, but if within his heart he has a spirit of detachment, he should not be considered entangled. I was fasting in the sense that I wasn't enjoying that prasadam like a materialistic person. I was honoring that prasadam as Krishna's mercy. He said, prasadam may fill the belly, it may taste good, but this is not a sadhu's consideration. A sadhu's consideration is that Krishna has appeared before me as this mercy. Let me take it to my full satisfaction. This is real renunciation. This is my fast. I'm fasting from sense gratification, but relishing Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, my mantra is true. I subsist on very little, just juice in the form of durva grass. But if Krishna appears before me as his mercy, as prasadam, I will embrace it, not for sense gratification, but to honor my beloved. Let me be clear. I am fasting from the tendency for sense gratification while embracing the mercy of the Lord. My dear girls, that is yukta vairagya. So that was for me. Now, as far as Krishna being a brahmachari, a renunciate, he's a renunciate in the sense that he's never been attached to anything material. That technically never comes in touch with the material energy. In one sense, he's a renunciate. He has nothing to do with this world. And he doesn't need to, because he is famous as Atmarama. Atmarama means a fully satisfied person. He's the supreme person. He's fully satisfied. He doesn't depend on anything or anyone for his pleasure. He's perfectly satisfied. One of his qualities as Bhagavan is that his renunciation. His opulence, his renunciation. So the gopi said, how so? So Durvasa Muni, he smiled, he said, so much so that he can leave you gopis at the height of the rasa dance and not feel any disturbance. Can walk away from the most beautiful girls in the three worlds and not be disturbed at all. Like Brahmachari, he's renounced. But he's deeply attached to you on the spiritual platform, and that's the perfection of renunciation. To have nothing to do with this material world and to be in love with Krishna and the residents of Vrindavan. So he said, do you understand? Now when the gopis had heard Durvasa Muni say Krishna's the supreme person, their eyebrows curled and they looked at each other like, what's he saying? Krishna's the supreme person? He's God? Our boy who plays with his friends and meets us secretly in the forest. So they said, do we understand? Yeah, sure, we understand. Thank you. Satisfied that they received Durvasa's blessings and Krishna's blessing and had achieved their goal. That Krishna, we want to serve you, we want to be with you forever and forevermore. They happily ran down to the riverbank. And there they folded their hands, and with great confidence they said to Mother Yamuna, thinking of Durvasa Muni as having eaten nothing but durva grass, please part your waters so we can go home. And the waters parted. The words of a sadhu always come true. When the gopis ran to their side and arrived home just before it got dark. And that night each gopi fell asleep thinking, Krishna, we will serve you and we will be with you forever and forevermore. So lots of pastimes and lots of philosophy today. One conclusion is that by the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, the Lord and the Lord's devotee, anything and everything is possible in Krishna consciousness. So I'll end today's lecture on Kamaravan and some of the pastimes that happened there and the pastimes of some of the devotees who lived there. I'll end with a quote from our beloved, again, Rupa Goswami and Padyavali, about how amazing is Krishna's mercy. He writes, I offer my respectful obeisances to wonderful, playful, mischievous Krishna, who, if he desires, can make an ocean dry land and ocean, a blade of grass, a thunderbolt an insignificant blade of grass, fire cool, or snow a blazing fire. Shri Kamaravan ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Durvasa Muni ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radhashama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, back home, back to Godhead, Shri Goloka Vrindavan Dham ki, Jai Jai Sisi Radhe Sham. See you in a couple of days on Wednesday with more pastimes from another of the 133 forests here in Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thank you so much, Prabhu, once again for this amazing opportunity. Hare Krishna. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 2 of part 23. In our last lecture we discussed extensively about the various kinds, shapes, and colors of Krishna's tilak, and we'll continue in that way. Krishna's tilak is one of the many ornaments that add to his beauty and make him look beautiful. But actually, Srila Prabhupada explains that concept in reverse. In chapter 22 of Nectar Devotion, he writes that Krishna actually makes the ornaments on his body, including his tilak, look beautiful. He writes, quote, in the 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, 12th verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhava tells Vidura, my dear sir, Krishna's form was most wonderful when he appeared on this planet and exhibited the potency of his internal energy. His wonderfully attractive form was present during his pastimes on this planet, and by his internal potency, he exhibited his opulences, which are striking to everyone. His personal beauty was so great that there was no necessity for wearing ornaments on his body. In fact, instead of the ornaments beautifying Krishna, Krishna's beauty enhanced the ornaments. Hare Krishna. But either way, Krishna's tilak is one item that stimulates his devotees' love for him. Shri Vallabhacharya, in his famous Madhur Ashtakam, he writes about the intoxicating influence of Krishna's tilak, among other things. Famously he wrote, Gitam Madhuram Patim Madhuram Bhuktam Madhuram Suptam Madhuram Rupam Madhuram Tilakam Madhuram Madhuradi Pater Akilam Madhuram. Speaking about Krishna. His melodious singing is sweet. His yellow silk cloth is sweet. His eating is sweet. His sleeping is sweet. His beauty is sweet. His yellow tilak is sweet. About the emperor of sweetness, everything is sweet. His melodious singing is sweet. His yellow silk cloth is sweet. His eating is sweet. His sleeping is sweet. His beauty is sweet. His yellow tilak is sweet. About the emperor of sweetness, everything is sweet. And it's for that reason that devotees take great pleasure in decorating Krishna with tilak, his intimate devotees in the spiritual world. Last Friday we described in detail how Mother Yasoda, the gopis, the cowherd boys, they all delight in decorating Krishna with tilak. And other devotees do as well. I was reading last night that after the pastime of Krishna's lifting Govardhan hill, when the Surabi cow and Indradev came to see Krishna, they offered their respects to him, and then in her humble way, Surabi came forward and it's described, spoke with the eloquence of the goddess of learning. O Lord, she said, you are the tilak mark of good fortune on the head of King Nanda's capital. Even if hundreds of Indras tried to kill the cows and gopas, you would protect Gokul and fill its citizens with bliss. Then it's described that Indra and Brahma together came forward and painted artistic tilak on Krishna's forehead. So others also put tilak on Krishna's forehead. And after that, overcome by bliss, the king of heaven, Indradev, he placed a regal crown on Krishna's head and declared, Krishna, you are the king of kings. Hare Krishna. Now, at this point, I think it would be appropriate to discuss the tilak of Krishna's eternal consort, Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani. For Krishna's devotees also wear tilak, and of course she's the best of Krishna's devotees. Now, Radharani's tilak is called Smara Yantra. Smara Yantra. In Gitavali, in the prayer Radhastika by our beloved Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, therein he writes about Radharani's tilak. He writes, "This beloved daughter of Vrishabhanu is the diamond Dhira amongst the jewel-like adolescent girls. Her radiant complexion, like molten gold, elegantly complements her blue garments and dark curly hair. With her forehead marked with tilak, her roving blue eyes outlined with beryllium, and her limbs elegantly adorned with jewelry, Radharani appears to be sweetness personified." Similarly, in Govinda Dasa's Padavali, we hear one time Sri Radha, in separation from Krishna, was dressed in a black sari and decorated with pearl ornaments and a garland of flowers. Her complexion was golden with kumkum, her lips were red like betel, and her eyes lined with black kajal ointment. The tilak of good fortune graced her forehead. Jeweled earrings framed her cheeks. Sweetness shone from her limbs, and yet sorrow filled her heart, and tears rolled down her cheeks as she sat silently in separation from her beloved. There again we hear about her beautiful tilak. Of course, Srimati Radharani's tilak does not look much like the vertical lines of Krishna's tilak, which we discussed last Friday. Her tilak is more of an artistic design on her forehead, and sometimes may not be so apparent because of her complexion, like molten gold. Meaning that because one kind of tilak her servants adorn her with is Gopichandan tilak, which is itself the color of gold. Therefore her tilak remains a little hidden by her golden complexion. Now, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Anchi Leela, chapter 18, we get a glimpse of another kind of Radharani's tilak. Therein, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, "The nectar that flows from Radha's form comes from her natural fragrance, which resembles a blend of camphor, kumkum, and roses, further enriched by the musk and aguru in her tilak and unguents." Further enriched by the musk and guru in her tilak and unguents. So it appears that this form of Radha's tilak is made from musk and aguru oil. We say oud many times these days. That's what her tilak's made of. Musk and oud, or aguru oil. So interesting. And from Shastra we also learn that like Krishna, Srimati Radharani doesn't apply her own tilak, but other devotees lovingly do so for her. For example, in Astakala Lila Padavali, it's a book by a great devotee named Raya Shekhar. We hear how Mother Yasoda often dresses Sri Radha in beautiful clothes and ornaments, including auspicious tilak. Raya Shekhar writes, Yashoda motions for Radha to take her place on a seat in the center of the room, and with great affection begins to dress and ornament her. By first retying Radha's soft curly hair into a graceful braid. Braja's queen then applies fresh vermilion in the part of Radha's hair, tilak on her forehead, and beryllium over her eyelids. Then she steps back to get a better look, marveling at her own artistry. So beautifully described. So Mother Yasoda puts Radharani's tilak on. In our previous class we discussed how sometimes Krishna's friends, his gopas or even gopis, they put Krishna's tilak on him. But it's interesting that sometimes Krishna himself puts tilak on his favorite gopi, Srimati Radharani. In Govinda Lilamrita we hear, I'll quote here, once Krishna ornamented his beloved Radharani. Afterwards, only for Krishna's pleasure did Radha examine her own reflection. It was incomparably beautiful, the eternal residence of loving sacrifice, in which her forehead was a golden sacrificial altar, the Yagyashala. Her curly locks were like the magic syllables of the sacrifice. Her multicolored tilak a smara yantra, a smara yantra. Her black eyeliner, the sacred ash, and the decorative flowers, uncontaminated offerings. Now therein, you may have noticed, it's mentioned her tilak was like a smara yantra. So I don't know what a smara yantra was, so I looked it up. What's a smara yantra? Yantras are, in general, how could you say, symbolic geometrical patterns. Symbolic geometrical patterns. And Shastra describes that when they represent the god of love, Kandarpa or Cupid, they're called smara yantras. Smara yantras. So she has that on her forehead. So, but not only do Krishna and Mother Yasoda ornament Vrindavaneshwari with tilak, but Radharani's maidservants obviously do as well. And there's a very, very beautiful description of Srimati Radharani's girlfriends ornamenting her with tilak and, other ornaments as well. I found it in Garga Samhita, chapter 20, entitled, what's the title? Rasa Krida, meaning the rasa dance pastime. So therein it is written. It's so beautiful. Sri Narada said, after enjoying water pastimes, handsome Lord Krishna went with the gopis to Govardhan Hill. On Govardhan Hill, in a cave where the ground was made of jewels, Lord Krishna enjoyed a rasa dance with Sri Radha, the queen of the rasa dance. Sitting on a flower throne, Sri Radha and Krishna shone like a monsoon cloud and lightning on the hill. There, their happy gopi friends decorated their queen Radha with sandal, kumkum, yavaka, aguru, and kajal. The gopis worshipped Kirti's daughter Radha with offerings of honey, and Shri Jamunaji gave Nupura anklets to her. Sri Ganga gave splendid Manjira anklets. Sri Rama gave a network of tinkling ornaments, and Madhu Madhavi gave a beautiful necklace. Viraja, the gopi Viraja, gave a beautiful Chandrakanta necklace, splendid as millions of moons. Lalita Saki gave a jeweled bodice, and Vishaka Saki gave a neck ornament. Chandranana, the gopi, Chandranana gave many jeweled rings, and the gopi Ekadasi gave to Radha 2 bracelets rich with many jewels. Satta Chandranana, wow, Satta Chandranana gopi gave many jewel bhuja kankana armlets, and Madhumati gave a pair of glittering angada armlets. The gopi Bandi gave tatanka earrings. Sukha Dayani gopi gave kundala earrings, and the close friend Anandi gave a bala torona ornament to Sri Radha. A bala torona. We'll have to wait to get back to the spiritual sky to know what that is. Then Padma gopi gave beautiful forehead tilak. Chandrakala gave a bindu, and Padmavati gave a nose pearl that moved, it's described, to and fro. O king, her beautiful friend Chandrakanta gave Radha a charming balapushpa, splendid as the rising sun. Sundari gave a crest jewel. Praharsini Gopi, gave a braid jewel, and the goddess Vrinda, the queen of Vrindavan, Vrinda Devi, gave Chandra and Surya ornaments glittering like 10 million lightning flashes. Accompanied by brilliantly decorated Radha on the king of mountains, Lord Krishna shone with great glory. The place on Govardhan Hill where Sri Radha was decorated like this is known as Sringara Mandala. Let's go to Sringara Mandala next Kartik. Tell the pastime again and again and again. And it finishes. Then accompanied by his beloved gopis, Lord Krishna went to the lake, Chanda Sarovara. Hare Krishna, such a beautiful description. There's Tilak in there. Now, Tilak plays an important role in stimulating love for Radha and Krishna, as well as in the combined forms of Radha and Krishna, known as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tilak also plays an important role in stimulating our love for him. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 8:14, we hear how that when Lord Chaitanya discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund, it's a wonderful pastime. Mahaprabhu discovered Radhakund and Shyamakund. He took mud, sacred mud, from Radhakund and applied it in 12 places as tilak. Kundera Mitika Lasa Latika Hariya Bhattacharya Dhora Matrika Ange Kari Laila. Quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then marked his body with tilak, made from the mud of Radhakund. And with the help of Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he collected some of the mud and took it with him. Furthermore, in Chaitanya Bhagavat by Vrindavan Das Thakur, we learned that when Mahaprabhu was teaching as a young man, you could say actually a boy, he was known as Nimai Pandit, and he had a school, a tola. And whenever a student would come to school without tilak, Nimai Pandit would refuse to see that student's face. He would say, since you are not wearing tilak, my dear student, you must not have done your morning puja. And if you did not perform puja, then most probably you didn't bathe. So you're coming before all of us in an unclean manner. It's described that he would thus humiliate the student, because sometimes the teacher has to chastise. So he would humiliate the student in this way. And Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, send him back home, saying, take bath, apply tilak, and then return. Otherwise, you cannot come here for studying. To see your forehead without tilak is like seeing a cremation ground. Cremation ground. Take your crematorium and get out of here. Ooh. Strong words. Strong words. We hear how Mahaprabhu could be strong like a thunderbolt, but soft as a rose. But such words are necessary because they stress the importance of tilak for every devotee of Krishna. I found a verse in the Padma Purana where Krishna says, to please me, devotees apply tilak.
Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Namaste Bhakti Dhira Damodara Swami Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Namaste Bhakti Dhira Damodara Swami Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharini, Nidhisesa Srinavadi, Satyadi Satarini. Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharini. Jaya Shri Krishna Jaya Nityananda Sadhu Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shiva Sadi Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Jaya Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Jaya Lalita Visakha Jaya Radha Jaya Visakha Jaya Radha Jaya Lalita Visakha Jaya Radha Jaya Visakha Jaya Radha Jaya Nৃsimhadev Jaya Nৃsimhadev Nৃsimhadev Jaya Bhattachala Jaya Nৃsimhadev Jaya Nৃsimhadev Nৃsimhadev Jaya Bhattachala Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Sudarshanai Jaya Sudarshana Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Sudarshanai Jaya Sudarshana Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Hari Gol, Hari Gol, Hari Gol.
Vatsala Sri Gaurahari Vatsala Sri Gaurahari Sri Gaurahari Hari Sahi Goshta Bihari Nanda Jasomati Chita Hari Dhira Damodara Ishaye Kana Bova Mandire Bashi Karaha Bojana Nandirani Deshi Bashi Giri Baradari Baladeva Saha Sokha Boise Sari Sari Shukta Shakhari Vaji Lalita Kushmanda Dalidana Dugda Tumi Dadi Mocha Kanda Dabora Mash Boda Rotika Gritana Saskuli Pistaka Kir Kuli Payasana Kapura Amrita Keli Ramba Kirashara Amrita Rasalama Dvadasha Pakora Luci Sinisar Puri Ladura Sabali Bhojana Korena Krishna Hoye Kutuhali Radhikara Pakayana Bibida Bhanjana Paramayanande Krishna Korena Bhojana Chale Bale Ladu Khai Sri Madhu Mangala Bagala Bajaya Deya Hari Bolo Radhikari Gani Hari Nayane Rakone Ripta Hoye Kai Krishna Jasoda Bhavani Bhojanande Priya Krishna Subhasita Bari Sabe Mukha Prakaloy Hore Sari Sari Asta Mukha Prakaliya Jata Sakagane Anande Vishrama Kore Baladeva Sane Jambula Rasalane Tambula Masala Tahake Krishna Chandra Suke Nidradeva Vishalaka Shiki Pucha Chamara Dulaya Apurva Sayaya Krishna Suke Nirayaya Yasomati Anga Priya Danishtaya Nito Sri Krishna Prasad Radha Unje Hoye Prito Lalitari Saki Gana Avashesha Paya Mane Mane Sukhe Radha Krishna Guna Gaya Hari Lila Ekamatra Jahara Pamora Gokarati Gai Thakur Bhakti Vinoda Madhava Katha Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Madhava Katha Vatsala Sri Gaura Hari Sri Gaura Hari Sahi Gosta Bihari Sri Gaura Hari Sahi Gosta Bihari